Dear students, welcome to last but one chapter of 9th standard mathematics, proportion. This one is its first class. In this chapter, we will discuss about the changes that happens on some measures. We will take two measures simultaneously. We will notice the change happens in one measure. Then the change happens in the other measure is also considered. If the ratio of changes in both measures are same, we will tell they are in proportion. That means if the rate of change in one measure is same as the rate of change in the other, we will tell they are in proportion. There exist many examples of this kind that we can see in our daily life. For an example, see the case of a bike and the petrol used in it. If by 1 liter of petrol, if a bike can cover 40 kilometers, see this chart, if we use 1 liter of petrol, it can cover 40 kilometers. Instead of 1 liter, if we use 2 liters, how much kilometers can be covered? 1 liter, when it changed into 2 liters, this 40 kilometer changed to 80 kilometers. What we see from this table. Here, the ratio of change in petrol, that is our first measure, is 1 to 2. 1 is to 2. At the same time, the distance covered changes from 40 to 80. When it is reduced, it will be 40 is to 80 will become 1 is to 2. As that of the ratio of change in the petrol, here also the distance covered is also like that. That means the ratio of change in petrol and the ratio of change in distance covered are equal. That means the rate of change in petrol is same as that of the rate of change in distance covered. These two measures, that is petrol and distance covered, are in proportion as explained here. The rate of change in one measure is same as that of the rate of change in the other measure. We will tell these two quantities, petrol and distance covered, are in proportion. Now let us consider one more example. See an item purchased and the total price. For example, let us have taken the number of notebooks and the total price required. Number of notebooks. If the price of a notebook is some 15 rupees, let us suppose so. Price of a notebook is 15 rupees. If 5 notebooks is purchased, we know for one notebook it is 15, therefore 5 notebooks, here it will be 5 times 15 will be 75 rupees. Instead of 5, if we purchase 8 notebooks, it will be the total price, then 8 times 15, we know it is 120 rupees. What we say here? Here the ratio of change in notebook is 5 is to 8. Here the rate of change in one measure is 5 is to 8. Now what happens the rate of change in the other measure, that is total price, 75 is to 120. 75 is to 120 when reduced into simplest form, it will be again 5 is to 8. What we see here also the number of notebooks, that is our one measure, the rate of change there, it is 5 is to 8. Here the total price, it's a rate of change, it is, or the ratio of change is again 5 is to 8. Both these measures changes in the same rate. We will tell these two quantities or these two measures are in proportion. The rate of change in one measure is same as that of the rate of change in the other measure. We will tell they are in proportion. Therefore, an item and the total price. Okay, if we purchase from market, whatever item be it, its quantity and the total price are in proportion. Now, let us go to previous example. See, here let us write the ratio of change in petrol. You have to write this statement and this table there in your notebook. Here let us write extra ratio of change in petrol. See, ratio of change in petrol. പെട്രോളിൽ വന്ന ചേഞ്ച് എന്താണ്? സി 1 ലിറ്റർ 2 ലിറ്റർ ആയി എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് 1:2. 1:2. What about ratio of change in distance covered? Therefore, ratio of change in distance. Ratio of change in distance. How can we write? That's equal to 40 kilometers became 80 kilometers. Therefore, this 40:80. That is again 1:2. Okay. With this statement and this table, you have to write this one also there in your notebook. Now, let us go to the second example. See, here, the number of notebooks changed to 5 to 8. Here, the total price changes from 75 to 120. Both these ratios, again 5:8 is same as that of 75:120. It is same as that of 5:8. In both these cases, we see the ratio of changes in one measure is same as that of the ratio of change in the other measure. Okay, and so this table also be there in your notebook with this statement. Okay, how to return these things in your notebook. Now, let us conclude a result like this. See, here two measures is to be written. If we denote the first measure by X as like petrol or number of notebooks like that, here the second measure is denoted by Y. See, X and Y. The value obtained for the initial measure X, for the first time if it is some X1, at that time the corresponding value of Y measure is Y1, just suppose like that. And the second time the value obtained for the X measure if it is some X2, as we tell for 1 liter of petrol, 2 liter of petrol like that. Here the first value for X measure is X1 and the second time it is X2. At that time the measure obtained for the Y value, it is Y2. If X and Y are in proportion, the result we have understood now is if X and Y are in proportion. What we see now, if they are in proportion, X1 is to X2. The ratio between these two values, X1 is to X2, will be equal to that ratio will be equal to the ratio between these two values. That is Y1 is to Y2. It is one of the important results that we have understood now. Y1 is to Y2. See, Y1 is to Y2. The ratio between these two values will be equal to the ratio between these two values. That is X1 is to X2 equal to Y1 is to Y2. If X and Y are in proportion, X1 is to X2 equal to Y1 is to Y2. You have to draw such a table and this result in your notebook. Now we have to apply this result to solve some problems, some textbook problems. See the first question. Now read the question. A person invests 10,000 rupees and 15,000 rupees in two different schemes. After 1 year, he got 900 rupees as interest for the first amount and 1,200 rupees as interest for the second amount. Are the interests proportional to the investments? That is the first question. Second one, what is the ratio of the interest to the amount invested in the first scheme? What about the second? Third one, what is the annual rate of interest in the first scheme and in the second? Here, a man invests 10,000 rupees and 15,000 rupees in two different schemes. That means in two different banks, maybe like that. In one bank, 10,000 rupees and in the other 15,000 rupees. From first bank, he got as interest after 1 year 900 rupees, and from the second bank, he obtained 1,200 rupees as interest. Are the interest proportional to the investments? That is the question. And so here, let us suppose the X measure. Two measures are there here, X measure and Y measure. X measure, let us consider it as the investment 10,000 rupees, and next time it is 15,000. These are the X measures. Okay, we will suppose one measure by X and the other by Y. The interest amount he got can be supposed as the Y measure, that is, for the first time it is 900, second time it is 1,200. Now, what about X1 is to X2? It is 10,000 is to 15,000. 10,000 is to 15,000 when reduced, we see that will be 10 is to 15. It again can be reduced to 2 is to 3. Now, what about next two ratios? Y1 is to Y2 is equal to, it is 900 is to 1,200. 900 is to 1,200 can be reduced as 9 is to 12. Again, on writing, it will be 3 is to 4. 3 is to 4 it is. Now see these two ratios. Here we can't compare this one, as it is one is 2 is to 3 and the other is 3 is to 4. And so we have to make any one of the starting ratio equal or the last ratios equal. Here 2 is to 3 can be written as 6 is to, if you multiply both 2 and 3 by 3, it will be 6 is to 9. Second time, here this will be 3 is to 4, again can be written as, when multiplied by 2, it will be 6 is to 8. What do we see? If it is to be told this X and Y is in proportion, we must get these two ratios equal. As the first one is 6 is to 9, the second one 6 is to 8, they are different. We can tell, are the interests proportional to the investment? No. The interests are not proportional to the investments. And so you can write this question and these steps in your notebook. At last, tell like this: the interests are not proportional to the investments. Now, the second part of the question asks us to find the ratio of interest to the amount invested in both the schemes. Now, ratio of interest to amount invested in scheme 1 is equal to, for ratio of amount interested, 900 rupees is obtained as interest for 10,000 rupees. Therefore, this one is that ratio of interest to amount invested in scheme. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെയും പറയാൻ പറ്റും, 900 is to 10,000. ഏത് രീതിയിൽ പറഞ്ഞാലും മതി. ദാറ്റ്സ് ഈക്വൽ ടു, ഇങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ എഴുതണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് 9/100. ഇങ്ങനെയാണ് എഴുതണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് 9 is to 100. Okay, and so the answer. Now, in the second scheme, let us write that's equal to 1,200 rupees for 15,000. Therefore, on cancellation, it will be 12/150. 12/150, it is 3 into 4 by 3 into 50. Therefore, it is 4/50. 4/50 can be written as 8/100. Okay, better to write it in this way because the third question asks us to find out the interest rate in both the schemes. And so 8/100 or 8 is to 100. Now, what about the third question asks us? See the third question. Now we have written the answer for the second question. The third question asks us what is the annual rate of interest in the first scheme and in the second. And so this one gives the answer to that one also. Here, if the investment is 100, 9 rupees interest is obtained in the first scheme. In the second scheme, if the investment is 100, 8 rupees is obtained. This one also can be written as 8 is to 100. This one tells us that for 100 rupee deposit investment, 9 rupee interest is there. Therefore, the interest rate is 9%. Here the question, third question asks us what is the interest rate in both the schemes. In the first scheme, the interest rate is 9%, and in the second scheme, the interest rate is 8%. You can write down this one also there in your notebook as the continuation of the question number 1. Have it written in your notebook. Now, before discussing the next question, we have to go back to our table that we have already discussed. See, here petrol price, let us assume, let that be the first measure and we suppose it by X. See, this one we just suppose by X. Now let this be the X quantity and this be the Y quantity. And so this one our X1 value, this one is our X2 value. Here it is Y1 value and Y2 value. What do we see? Here, if we divide it like this, X1 by Y1. Here we see that X1 is to X2 is equal to Y1 is to Y2. Moreover, X1 is to X2 is equal to Y1 is to Y2. In short, X and Y are in proportion. In this context that we have already found. But here, X1 by Y1, we divide this one by this. X1 by Y1. X1 by Y1 means it is 1 by 40. 1 liter for 40 kilometers. It is 1 by 40. 1 by 40. And so, what about X2, Y2? X2 by X2 divided by Y2. X2 divided by Y2 will be what? X2 divided by Y2 is equal to 2 by 80. That we see X2 divided by Y2 will be this 2 divided by 80. 2 by 80 we see it is 1 by 40. And so if we take some other values, if it is there 3, here it will be 120. Therefore 3 by 120 again will be 1 by 40. Generally speaking, if we consider this X and Y, let us have it drawn that table here. See, here let us have a general result derived. This table, here the X measure, this one is Y measure. If two quantities X and Y, if two measures X and Y are in proportion, here the first value of X is X1, then X2, like that here it is Y1 and Y2. We can see X1 by Y1 will be a value as we obtained here. X1 by Y1 will be a number as like 140 there will be a number K. Now X2 by Y2 also here X1 by Y1 is 1 by 40, X2 by Y2 is again 1 by 40, therefore X2 by Y2 is equal to also will be K. If X and Y are in proportion, X1 by Y1 or X2 by Y2 or X3 by Y3, all they will be equal to a fixed number that we call as K. This K is called as constancy of proportion. Constancy of proportion. Constancy of proportion. Okay. Therefore, if X and Y are in proportion, here we get a result. If X and Y are in proportion, what result we get in proportion? In proportion, what do we see? X by Y always. Instead of telling X1 by Y1, X2 by Y2, X3 by Y3, we tell generally X divided by Y. That means always the value obtained here divided by this one will be a fixed number. X by Y is equal to K. And so we can check whether two quantities or two measures are in proportion if there exists, whether there exists a relation X by Y always a K. Okay, when we divide one measure with the corresponding measure of the other, always that gives that ratio is a fixed number. We can tell that X and Y are in proportion. Or if X and Y are in proportion, such a relation is there. Okay, you can write down this table and these two tables and these much explanations there in your notebook. This K is called as the constancy of proportion. And so for the next question, we must have these things there in your mind to answer. Okay, first of all, write these things in your notebook. See the question. For each pair of quantities given below, check whether the first is proportional to the second. For proportional quantities, calculate the constant of proportionality. First of all, perimeter and radius of circles. പെരിമീറ്ററും റേഡിയസ് ഓഫ് സർക്കിളും നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ എക്സും വൈ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് എഴുതാം. എന്നിട്ട് എക്സ് മെഷർ നമുക്ക് പെരിമീറ്റർ ആയിട്ട് എടുക്കാം, വൈ മെഷറിന് റേഡിയസ് ആയിട്ട് എടുക്കാം. ഇത് പെരിമീറ്റർ ആണെന്ന് സപ്പോസ് ചെയ്യുക. പെരിമീറ്റർ ആൻഡ് വൈ മെഷർ റേഡിയസ് ആയിട്ട് എടുക്കാം. നൗ പെരിമീറ്റർ ആൻഡ് റേഡിയസ് ഓഫ് സർക്കിൾ വെദർ ദേ ആർ ഇൻ പ്രൊപ്പോർഷൻ എന്നാണ് ചോദിച്ചത്. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ഈ പെരിമീറ്റർ റേഡിയസ് R1 ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് പെരിമീറ്റർ 2πr1 ആണ്. റേഡിയസ് R2 ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് പെരിമീറ്റർ 2πr2 ആണ്. എപ്പോഴും നമുക്ക് x1/y1 കിട്ടുന്ന ആൻസർ എന്തായിരിക്കും? ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ x1 വാല്യൂ, ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ y1 വാല്യൂ. x1/y1 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 2πr1/r1. R1കളെ ക്യാൻസൽ ചെയ്താൽ 2π എന്നുള്ള ആൻസർ കിട്ടും. എന്നപോലെ x2/y2 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ x2 വാല്യൂ, ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ y2 വാല്യൂ. x2/y2 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 2πr2/r2 എന്നായിരിക്കും. 2πr2/r2 on cancellation of the r2 there again it is 2π, but we see always x1/y1 is 2π, x2/y2 is 2π, always x/y is equal to k എന്ന് പറയുന്ന രീതി തന്നെയാണ് ഇവിടെയും കിട്ടുന്നത്. x/y is equal to k mean it is a fixed number, therefore x and y are in proportion mean perimeter is proportional to radius. And so I have discussed the answer to the first question, whether perimeter and radius are in proportion. They are in proportion because x/y is equal to k. നമ്മൾ ഇത്രയും സ്റ്റെപ്സ് ഒന്നും എഴുതി നോക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല. ഓക്കെ, നമ്മൾ എപ്പോഴും പെരിമീറ്റർ ബൈ റേഡിയസ് ഇസ് ഈക്വൽ ടു 2πr/r, ദാറ്റ്സ് ഈക്വൽ ടു 2π. ദെർഫോർ പെരിമീറ്റർ ഈസ് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണൽ ടു റേഡിയസ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാലും മതി. ഓക്കെ, അതിൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം എന്താ? റേഡിയസ് ഡബിൾ ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് പെരിമീറ്റർ ഡബിൾ ആവും, റേഡിയസ് 3 ടൈംസ് ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് പെരിമീറ്റർ 3 ടൈംസ് ആവും. ഇൻ വാട്ട് വേ റേഡിയസ് ചേഞ്ചസ്, ഇൻ ദി സെയിം വേ പെരിമീറ്റർ ചേഞ്ചസ്. അതാണ് പെരിമീറ്റർ ആൻഡ് റേഡിയസ് ആർ ഇൻ പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിൻ്റെ ഉദ്ദേശം. Now the second part, area and radius of circle, whether area is proportional to radius of circle, that we have to discuss next. See, നമ്മൾ ഇതേപോലെ തന്നെ എഴുതി നോക്കണം എന്നൊന്നുമില്ല. അവിടെ ഏരിയ ആണ് ഒന്ന്, ഏരിയ, the other is റേഡിയസ്. ഏരിയനെ നമുക്ക് റേഡിയസ് R1 ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഏരിയ πr1² ആണ്, റേഡിയസ് R2 ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഏരിയ πr2² ആണ്. x/y എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇവിടെ എന്തായിരിക്കും? πr1²/r1 ആണ് അല്ലേ? x/y ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ x ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റി, ഇതാണ് y ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റി. x/y πr1²/r1. അവിടെ R1² ഒരു R1ഉം ഇവിടെയുള്ള ഈ R1² ഒരു R1ഉം ഈ ഡിനോമിനേറ്ററിലുള്ള ഒരു R1ഉം ക്യാൻസൽ ചെയ്താൽ ദി ആൻസർ വിൽ ബി πr1. ഓക്കെ, നൗ x/y ഈസ് ഈക്വൽ ടു സെക്കൻഡ് ടൈമിൽ x/y കിട്ടുന്ന ആൻസർ ഇവിടെ നിന്നാണ് കിട്ടുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, അതായത് x2/y2 കിട്ടുന്ന ആൻസർ πr2²/r2 എന്നാണ്. πr2²/r2 എന്നാണ്. πr2² എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ഒരു r2 സ്ക്വയർഡ് 1r2 ദി ഡിനോമിനേറ്റർ വിൽ ഗെറ്റ് ക്യാൻസൽഡ്. πr2 എന്നുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. R1ഉം R2 ഒക്കെ ഡിഫറെൻ്റ് ആണ്. πr1 എന്ന് കിട്ടുന്ന ആൻസർ അല്ല πr2 കിട്ടുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ എന്താ മനസ്സിലാവുന്നത്? x/y എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇവിടെ x/y ഈസ് നോട്ട് ഈക്വൽ ടു എ കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ് k. Therefore area is not proportional to radius. That we understand. That is the second question. Area and radius of circles, are they in proportion? അപ്പോൾ ഇനി കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണാലിറ്റി ഇത് നോക്കേണ്ടതില്ല. ദേ ആർ നോട്ട് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണൽ എന്ന് കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണാലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാകില്ല. ഓക്കെ, ഐ തിങ്ക് ദാറ്റ് യു ഹാവ് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റുഡ്. എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ റേഡിയസ് ഡബിൾ ആയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഏരിയയും ഡബിൾ ആവുന്ന അവസ്ഥയില്ല, ഏരിയ അതിനേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ മാറും. ഓക്കെ, ആ രണ്ടിൻ്റെയും ചേഞ്ച്, റേഷ്യോ ഓഫ് ചേഞ്ച് ഓർ റേറ്റ് ഓഫ് ചേഞ്ച് ഇസ് നോട്ട് സെയിം, ആൻഡ് സോ ഏരിയ ഈസ് നോട്ട് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണൽ ടു റേഡിയസ് ഓഫ് എ സർക്കിൾ. And so you can write that question also there in your this explanation also there in your notebook. Now see the third part of the question. The distance traveled at the number of rotations of a circular ring moving along a line. That directly by just a thought you can tell they are in proportion. Here the distance covered and the number of rotations made by a ring. ഒരു റിങ് നമ്മൾ ഉരുട്ടി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്പർ ഓഫ് റൊട്ടേഷൻ ഡബിൾ ആവുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഡിസ്റ്റൻസും ഡബിൾ ആകും. നമ്പർ ഓഫ് റൊട്ടേഷൻസിൻ്റെ റേറ്റിൽ തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് കവർ ചെയ്യുക. ഓക്കെ, therefore they are in proportion. അപ്പോൾ വി ഹാവ് ടു ഫൈൻഡ് ഔട്ട് ദി കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണാലിറ്റി. അപ്പോൾ കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊപ്പോർഷണാലിറ്റി എന്താ? അവിടെ ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് കവേർഡ് ആണ്, ഞാൻ എഴുതി തരുന്നില്ല, നിങ്ങൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കുക. Distance covered is one measure and number of rotations is the second measure. Therefore, distance covered by number of rotations will be always a fixed number. Okay, that will be a fixed number k. ആ k എന്തായിരിക്കും നമുക്ക് പറയാം? It is the distance covered by one rotation. എപ്പോഴും ഡിസ്റ്റൻസിനെ നമ്പർ ഓഫ് റൊട്ടേഷൻസ് കൊണ്ട് ഡിവൈഡ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കിട്ടുന്ന വാല്യൂ ഫിക്സഡ് ആയിരിക്കും. ആ ഫിക്സഡ് വാല്യൂ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ദി ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് കവേർഡ് ബൈ വൺ റൊട്ടേഷൻ. Anyway, I think that you have understood how the third question is to be answered. Like that, the remaining two questions is given to you as homework. As there is not much time with us, I think that last two part can be done yourself. Now here I have to suggest some works that you have to do yourself as homework. Let us go to that one. Now, with these two parts of the question, we have one more question to do as homework. See the question. In calcium carbonate, the masses of calcium carbon and oxygen are in the ratio 10:3:12. In calcium carbonate, these are the elements contained calcium, carbon and oxygen. Their masses are in the ratio 10:3:12. When 150 grams of a compound was analyzed, it was found to contain 60 grams of calcium and 20 grams of carbon and 70 grams of oxygen. Is it calcium carbonate? If this compound, which contain calcium and carbon and oxygen, if it is to be calcium carbonate, these grams when reduced must come into the form of or equivalent fraction, equivalent ratio of 10:3:12. When 60:20:70 is reduced, at that time, if that ratio come to 10:3:12, or if we could express this ratio in the form of 10:3:12, at that time we can tell that the compound can be calcium carbonate. If it is not in this ratio, definitely it is not calcium carbonate, and so you have to check whether the ratio is same as that of this one. That part is left to you to do as homework. Okay, anyway, let us conclude now. Thank you all.